Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host, Sree Iyer. After a lapse of a few weeks, we have Dr. Ankit Shah back with us again as we go through an impending US banking crisis. Everybody says every day that everything is fine. Is it? There are lots of question marks because many of the loans taken by many banks in the United States could be rolling over to a much higher interest rate. Is this the tip of the iceberg? Are there more things? To know all about that, let's meet Dr. Ankit Shah. But before that, please like this video. And also, if you have not subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel. Here is Dr. Ankit Shah. Ankit ji, Ram Ram, kaise hain aap?
Ram Ram. Nutan Varshabhinandan to all the viewers.
Thank you and wish you the same, sir. Dr. Ankit Shah, we had a rash of failures, especially the Silicon Valley, especially the Silicon Valley Bank itself. And the FDIC did a stop and, they did bankrupt the bank, but people got their deposits back, not just the FDIC insurance, but the entire whole. So that sort of saved it for the moment. There is a new tsunami coming. There's also talk that some countries could be calling back some of their treasury bill deposits with the United States. I hear a lot of stuff, Dr. Ankit Shah, but this has been like, we have been crying wolf for 6 months, people say, right? Listen, you've been saying this, nothing has happened. What is it that the US is doing now to stop this barrage, and should we be concerned?
Well, Sri, this has been an acceleration of the de-dollarization process that we are seeing. And I think the COVID time was the moment when we saw a lot of printing of new US dollars, which is the effects of which we are seeing now coming up all across the Western economy. Now, we do understand that China and Japan hold a big chunk of US Treasury, and they are gradually phasing them out in small numbers. But I see next year there could be a event where Bank of Japan could be forced to sell a big chunk of the US Treasury. And more than the actions of the Federal Reserve, I believe the actions of the Bank of Japan will cause worldwide after effects of that move when it comes. So we are not surprised. This was expected. I mean, the annualized interest expense on US debt is now at 1 trillion and it is rising. I mean, just 2 years back, the annual interest expense on the US debt was around 450 billion. Now it is crossing 1 trillion. This is 128% jump in the interest expense. And guess what? They don't say that we are in recession yet. So the total US debt is up 10 trillion since 2020. And it is set to hit 35 trillion next year. So that is a 45% jump in US debt just within the last 3 years. And if people are still expecting a soft landing, I think they are under a delusion.
Now, one of the things also mentioned is that many banks which had taken short-term loans at very low interest rates, and they had heard Jerome Powell, sorry. Jerome Powell say 2 years ago, there is this meeting that happens in Yellowstone National Park just about the last week of August or so. That's what all the bankers go there. The Fed comes there, the Fed chair comes and, gives his prediction for the next year. And he had said that it was going to be a very, very, very small rise from, at that point of time, it was 0.25% interbank lending rate. I'm sorry. And from there, now we are at 5.5 or 5.75. Even stopped looking at it. So what has happened in the real on the ground is that housing starts have practically stopped, and sales also are slowing down drastically. People are cutting the prices to move the properties. They are like 5%. Silicon Valley usually doesn't fall. And there's a reason for that. The reason Silicon Valley doesn't fall is because it's a magnet area. Silicon Valley, Seattle area, New York City, and Boston. The 4 areas are magnets for external investment, like Chinese money, Korean money, all funny money, let's put it that way, all funny money comes here because they feel like this is a good place to invest. So even here, I've seen about 5% slide. And so people are a little bit concerned. So this resetting the rate, what would be that causing? I mean, will they be able to even pay their interest after that with a higher rate?
See, I see three sections in the American society. One is the generation which is totally on credit card debt, and we have already seen massive credit card delinquencies. I mean, it's just peaking. There is a second section of a corporate group which took loans in 1%, 2% rate during COVID times. And that 3-year cycle is ending in the next quarter, which means they will be approaching the bank for a rollover. And these banks are already facing about 600 billions in unrealized losses that they need to account for in the books. And this is the same quarter where these banks will have to get refinanced from the Federal Reserve as well. So the first and the second quarter of 2024, this looks like a big crisis coming within the US economy, because the new rates are not going to be easy at all. I mean, if you're talking 6, 7, 8% rollover rates, that is the second section. And the third section of the American society are those people who have parked their money in real estate and dependent on rentals, and they are not going to get a lot of youngsters coming in for those rented properties. And since whenever there is a crisis moment in the society, people move towards physical assets. So housing prices would be the last to face the reset, or what we call as the capital trimming, after the great financial reset that happens across the world. So I see that housing would be the last one to take the hit, the massive hit that I am looking at. But the credit card delinquencies and the corporate, which means entire companies being laid off, you shouldn't be surprised if that is what the case be. Starting from mid 2024, entire companies filing bankruptcies and layoffs. So this is what we are looking at the moment.
Now, what are the options in front of the Fed? People have been talking about a couple of options. One is to ride out the storm by continuing to do what is called as quantitative tightening. These are all buzzwords. I mean, all it is they have just raised the interest rates to a very high number in the name of fighting inflation. This 2% or lower inflation number, I think today we are at 3% in US, but not long ago we were at 10%. People are even questioning how you are counting. Maybe you are not counting everything, because they talk about,
change their definitions.
Yeah. So they don't count your energy prices, they don't count your food prices and say then this is the inflation. I mean, for a person who is he makes the salary, he or she makes this much salary, and these are all the expenses that are involved. I mean, they don't care. It's money going out. They can't quantify this.
See, the root cause of all this is that since you had the single country reserve currency status, there was no difference between a capital item and a revenue item for the Western economy. Because when you get loans at 1% and 2%, what that essentially means is that it is free money. So
can you unpack what is capital money and what is revenue money?
Yeah. So what happens?
Then we can come to today.
Yeah. Sure. So say for example, 5 friends went to a hotel, and the US friend is saying that let's pay the bill in US dollar. The other friends are happy. Let him pay the bill. So then the US friend says, let us do one thing. All 5 of us, when we trade amongst ourselves, let's do it in US dollar. So 180 plus nations destroyed the demand for their own currencies to artificially prop up the value of the US dollar. Now, 2 of the friends are saying, hey, we are working 12 hours, 18 hours, we are not able to make it up. So the US friend says, I'll set up some international bodies. You can take dollar loans from there. So there you go, IMF and World Bank. And of course, that comes with political conditions. Now, two of the friends say, hey, we are working 18, 19 hours. We are taking loans. We are still not able to earn US dollar to do any kind of business. So that was Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi of Libya. You know what happened to those. Now, so this entire game of exploiting the reserve currency status, polarizing the international trade, where the world was designed in a fashion that everything real production will happen in Asia and the Gulf, crude oil of the Gulf and production of Asia. We will just print the notes and buy the stuff. This was possible because you had this single country reserve currency status. Now, what has happened in the last 8-9 years is that the reversal of this dollarization process, which means that the rest of the world is saying we are no more going to park our savings in the US dollar or the US Treasury. So you saw from January 2022, there are no fresh investments in the US debt. Now, when you don't have one element of US debt propped up, you cannot print dollars anymore like you were printing before. So what happens with that is all the inflation which the rest of you were able to pass on to the rest of the world in the last 40 years, now that inflation strikes first on the Americans. So this is the first time the Western people are realizing what is the difference between capital and a revenue item. So say for example, when an Indian businessman has to go and take a loan, he gets the loan at 8, 9, 10% usually.
Yes.
What that means is he's not going to go for another loan next year until he starts getting returns for the first loan. But in the US, where the rates are 1 or 2%, he can take loans every other day. This is how exactly you had all the innovation like Google and Apple and Microsoft and whatnot. So it is basically free printed cheap money. So no difference between capital and revenue. So now it is the first time that the Western citizens are facing this difference between what a capital money is and what a revenue item is. So the 7, 8, 9% interest is the first time they would understand how to conduct business, real business in real competitive world. So that is a change which is coming. And it is, of course, it's going to be a painful change. So all those people who were trying to say that you are going to have rate cuts very soon, or they are under this delusion that these interest rates will vanish, is not going to happen. Because all the printing of dollars that you did from 1971, you essentially stole money from the future generation's pocket and you spent it, right? So what happens with that is you prepone poverty in the economy. When you steal money from future generation which is not yet born by raising debt, the repayments obviously get preponed. So this is exactly what is happening with the Western world. And the very fact that you cannot have a nuclear war with Russia or China is exactly the reason why the European allies were chosen to be dumped. It's like the dollar is eating itself by eating the economies of the ally countries with this Ukraine de-dollarization script.
Dr. Shah, one of the things that people have suggested is, okay, so the dollar is no longer trusted by everybody. Let's look at some alternate currencies. Euro was looked at, and they didn't think that euro had the legs. Although euro probably comes closest to being an option. They looked at the yuan, and people laughed because yuan, we all know, they print multiple notes with the same serial number. That means you are a joke. This is the central bank doing it. It's not like somebody's counterfeiting you. You don't even have an out that way. And then they looked at rupee, and the common people say, and this is Peter Zeihan, I don't know, you probably know him, geopolitical expert. He's a pretty good analyst about these things. He said the rupee is still seen as a soft currency. I mean, for me, who's not an economist, not a banker, not a financial person, I don't know what a soft currency means. Can you please kind of explain it to people? Because some people might say, oh, wait, now India has stopped yuan from becoming the BRICS currency. Does India have a chance? And people are still saying, well, there is a catch. What does it mean when you say India is a soft currency?
So there's a lot of confusion because of you see propaganda material all across the media. You got to first understand the fact that at this date, today, there is not a single country in this world which can take the burden of being the single reserve currency of this world. It's just not possible that any country's population, including the US, can take the burden and the benefits of single country reserve currency status. So you got to understand, yuan is simply out of question. It's just laughable. Okay. So you got to understand that yuan has features of trading currency because it has the manufacturing heft, but it does not have any features of being the savings currency as a stable store of value for the reasons you rightly pointed out. Ruble does not have trading currency feature. It does not have savings currency feature, but Russia has the largest natural resources, commodities resources with it on this planet. Indian rupee, we do have a little bit of savings currency feature, in terms of what we call as a stable store of value. We do not have the trading currency feature, that is the massive size of manufacturer or trading that we need to back up with. And we do not have massive amount of natural resources to back it up. So you got to understand that none of the four major powers currencies have all the features of being a trading currency, savings currency, and backing up with commodities. And in a multipolar world, there is absolutely no role for a single country reserve currency. So what we are moving towards is that the unipolar international trade is moving towards a multi-currency basket. Whether you name the basket as BRICS, X, Y, Z, whether you name it or you don't name it, the international trade is moving out from dollar to a multi-currency basket. Now, when you say, I mean, we just saw Sanjeev Sanyal saying by 2030, Indian rupee can become a hard currency. So what is the difference between a soft currency and a hard currency? Soft currency is the one which does not have the second element which the US dollar has, which is US Treasury. So until and unless there are yuan, rupee and ruble bonds, which are bought by a couple of nations of the world, you cannot have the capacity to print more rupee, yuan and ruble. Okay. So a soft currency does not have a strong bond position, which is what JP Morgan is promising to Bharat from mid 2024 till March 2025 is the window JP Morgan has declared for putting the Indian bonds propping up into the list in its basket. So we are looking, I mean, officially what is being said is a minimum of 25 to 35 billion of wealth flowing into Bharat in that window, based on which the chief economic advisor also said that rupee is going to massively appreciate after that.
My recollection of studying economics class, the definition of money is a measure of, money is a standard of functions for, money is a standard of functions for a medium, a measure, a standard, and a store. So in this new era, new world, does money still need to have all these four properties?
Well, what has happened with the concept of money is it is getting diluted day by day, year by year, century by century. So previously you just had the precious metals and precious metals coins. Then you got diluted metals coins, cheaper metal coins. Then you got paper notes, which were backed by gold standard. Then the gold standard was removed. Then it's just a piece of paper. And now we are coming towards digital entries backed by absolutely nothing. That is what people are talking, the CBDC. So the concept of money has lost the four principles which you just talked about. So it is losing it more and more, and it is primarily losing because of this debt-based model of growth, where you have the idea that you can borrow the money right now and have growth, and you will repay it later with no such real intentions of paying back. So that is what has happened with this world. So from that precious metals to digital entries, which is just a computer entry, that is where we are heading towards. But my concern, Sree, with the central bank digital currency, which the world is talking about after the financial reset, that is what we are going to have. One of the primary concerns, which we all know, that it is going to be a form of communist currency, which is to say that everything will be traced, money can be deleted, money can be cancelled out, money can have a window of survival, which means that this many coins wallet money has only 2 months of validity for usage, and those kind of things. You wrote something on social media, they will block access to your e-money. These are the kind of apprehensions with the central bank digital currency, which the rumors are about. But more than that, my primary concern is, what about areas where there will be no electricity, in terms of, say, there's a natural earthquake
Disaster.
or a flood, where you don't have electricity, where you don't have internet? How would this CBDC function? My second question is that one of the goals, whoever has propounded this idea of CBDC, one of the goals is to scrap all kinds of taxes and only bring transaction tax, because everything will be traceable, which means you can have tax on all transactions. You don't need the compliances of income tax or GST anymore. My comprehension is that people will see through this and they will begin barter trade so that you cannot tax them anymore.
I think I got the couplet right. Money is a matter of functions four: a medium, a measure, a standard, a store. The four and store have to match. So thanks for explaining that. So we have kind of ruled out, digital currency. Then the last remaining one is the one that India has always gone back to: gold, isn't it?
So, I mean, always the financial reset happens with the physical accumulation of gold. So that has always been the case. I mean, when you had monarchy, they used to issue gold and silver coins. They would demonetize those coins. The king will accumulate the wealth and they will issue cheaper metal coins. This is the standard practice of demonetization. Okay? Whenever you want to have a financial reset in the world, the formula is very simple: physical accumulation of gold. Similarly, when a pound was replaced by US dollar, America accumulated physical gold in exchange of war supplies to Europe. And then pound was replaced with the US dollar. So it is very clear that you need to accumulate physical gold to bring about a financial reset. Similarly, the first thing which the Prime Minister did was a gold monetization scheme in 2015 to see to it, because we Indians have more gold than the central banks of the entire planet put together. Okay, so the Prime Minister first tried a gold monetization scheme in 2015 to see to it that can we de-dollarize in this fashion. But it is our Sanatan wisdom. We don't part with the physical gold. So gold is actually your human right, your individual right, and your civil rights. Physical gold. It is the only asset which has zero political risk, zero geopolitical risk, zero liquidity risk, zero default risk, and zero counterparty risk. Now, obviously, the scheme failed, after which the central banks of all the BRICS plus nations started accumulating physical gold from the West from 2015 onwards, even more so, because what we are seeing is movement towards a multi-currency basket, multipolar world. So one country does not need to accumulate entire gold. So all central banks can have tiny portions accumulated. Now, there are two types of reset that can happen. One is either you make the currencies peg with a commodities formula. That is one kind of reset. And second kind of reset is you can keep your currencies fiat, that is simply printed out of thin air, but you can make an index for international trade which is pegged to commodities. That is the second method. So you are not disturbing the endless printing capacity that you have individually as countries, but you are making an index for an international trade which is pegged to commodities. This is the second method. And obviously the politicians would want to keep individual currencies fiat because they would want to declare freebies and stuff like that. So the second method is what I see as much more feasible, where they will devise a new payment system which is having some component of referencing the valuation for international trade in commodities terms and specifically gold. These are the two methods which are possible. Now, before that, the world will have to wrap up everything. I mean, especially the West will have to wrap up a lot of the business sectors, and that is exactly what we are witnessing right now. This next year and 2025, there will be a big wave of mergers and acquisition across the IT and the banking sector, particularly because the IT sector was born with the fiat dollar of 1971. So I see a massive round of mergers and acquisitions across the West in the banking and the IT sector if they wish to survive.
Two things, Dr. Shah. One, you said that many countries have started buying gold. I read somewhere, and I'm hoping that you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I read somewhere that Canada has sold all its gold. The Central Bank of Canada has sold all its gold. Is it true?
That's true. The Central Bank of Canada does not have any gold reserve. That's true. Not surprisingly, the Justin Trudeau government is taking Canada under the ground. So, this is going to be, I mean, one fine day, the Canadians will realize they wake up and have become Zimbabwe in terms whenever the financial reset happens. In any case, it does have massive natural resources, though, which can be channelized. And you are not,
𝗠𝗍𝗍, I can have only so many wooden products. You know, I have all my cabinets are wood. My floor is wood, and my house is built of wood. But this is something that even US gets it a lot in. I'm just wanted to give you some counterpoint, but I agree. Canada has a lot of natural resources. Please continue, sir. I have one more question after this before we yield the floor for questions. Go ahead.
So you got to understand the fact that when you see Eric Garcetti moving in Indian metros and putting up pics, you got to understand that he's hinting at public transport for the Western citizens. You take this symbolism very seriously, because after the financial reset in the West, what I am predicting is hardly one job per family kind of a situation, where one family will not be able to have multiple cars. That kind of lifestyle will not be possible after the financial reset. Those kind of job numbers will not be possible in the West after the financial reset. In fact, Xi Jinping has already officially told women to get into kitchen. Russians are also talking about the same birth rates thing. Italians are talking about the same birth rates thing, because the wealth of nations pass on only by inheritance via family unit. So if you don't have a family unit structure intact, what is going to happen is you will have to import illegals, like what happens from the southern border in the United States. So by the excuse of saying that you don't have labor, and now that you are going to revamp the core sectors like manufacturing back, you will need a lot of labor coming in. And I'm sure the Mexicans are more hardworking than the Bharati or Asian laborers, right?
Very true, very true. So my second question was, this is specific to India. You said that in 2015, India tried to do a gold monetization drive and that didn't work. I'm suggesting India can do a tweak. What that is you assume that, middle class has like maybe 20% or 30% of the gold of India. I'm not saying that you need to have this thing done for everyone, but what can be done is banks can say that you can bring your gold in, and we just want to take an inventory of what it is. And there is a machine these days that will tell you what is the purity and the value of that gold. What India wants to have is, let us say India says rupee from 1/1/2025 is going to be backed against gold, and it is determined, and they have to produce the data, city after city, state after the city, that we have done a 10% random sampling of the Indian population, and this is the amount of gold that India has. So we believe that this is the gold that against which we can peg our rupee. But for this, what has to happen is you don't destroy any gold, no destruction of jewelry, nothing. You just tell people, look, this will give you a free valuation report from a professionally testable agency, and that tells you that this is what your gold is worth. Because there's a lot of cheating also going on. 18 karat gold, 14 karat gold being passed off and sold as 22 karat gold. And these things can be easily checked today. Spectrometer, you just put it in, it just puts different signal frequencies on it. It knows what the content inside is, and it tells you, just a receipt, and tells you, okay, this is today's value of this particular thing. And what it gives is the value. Then you can have a passbook for gold. You just have that idea, you take it back with you. All it is for India to get a measure of its own gold wealth. Do you think India will do something bold like this?
Well, I have doubts on citizens' gold being measured or mobilized for some kind of things, because I see a multi-currency basket coming up before a rupee even can think of that kind of a unipolar role. But what I see otherwise is that next decade onwards, there will be only Indian tourists across the world, because you will be having the highest purchasing power in the world. And inadvertently, Sree, if we go back and summarize last 2000 years, we sold to the rest of the world a made in Bharat brand in terms of textiles and spices and tea and whatnot, attracted to which they came searching for us. So we had actually collected the gold of the rest of the world and became rich by that trade. Then they took gold from here, went over there after looting us. Unfortunately, to run the single country reserve currency status, they devised the fiat money of 1971, because of which, just to keep that status, they had to artificially bring down the value of gold. I mean, 90% of the derivatives, precious metals trading in the US is done by just one entity, JP Morgan. So JP Morgan and LBMA had a big role in the last 40 years to artificially bring the value of gold down to keep the reserve currency status going. So in that period of last 40-50 years, inadvertently and unknowingly, Bhartiyas collected back the entire physical gold from the West. So I'm summarizing last 2000 years. So the gold has come back to this subcontinent, and now when the reset happens and gold is released from that artificial suppression, as I said, by 2030 the passport ranking would have completely flipped, the visa ranking would have completely flipped, the university ranking would have completely flipped. Next decade, Indian farmer women, again, just like before invaders came in, they are going to be the richest business tycoons on earth. So you won't be surprised next decade if it's the Indian rurals who are taking massages in the Western resorts. So this is a change which has happened in the last 2000 years. What I see now is, as I said, we are going to be the spenders instead of exporters. We never had been exporters, frankly speaking. 65 to 70% is still domestic consumption, as you know, of the economy. So we never have, doesn't matter what global shocks happen, we are still the unorganized, rural, strong economy that we always were, because majority of the population did not got caught up in the British classroom format of organized services sector. So I think that is what is saving us today. And then when the financial reset happens and the services sector takes a huge hit across the world, you will come to know that it's only the Indian economy which is coming out as the strongest and the most stable. In fact, Indian banks will be titled as the strongest banks in the world after the financial reset. So don't be surprised if that happens, because the self-employment and entrepreneurship model is what Sanatan is about. And that is what has kept us rich. This intact family unit, marriage as not a piece of contract, but a marriage between two big families. I think that these are the virtues of Sanatan that has kept us intact.
Thank you. And this has been a very revealing conversation for me, and I'm sure our viewers also will understand. We have kind of touched upon a lot of things, but the fundamental thing that you cannot ignore is that the dollar is weakening. Maybe not in my lifetime that dollar ceases to be the standard currency or the reserve currency of the world, but definitely the signs are there.
Let me ask you a question. Let me do it reverse. You tell me, what does this terminology mean? Unlimited debt till 2025. What does that mean?
Nothing good, I'm afraid.
Unlimited debt means we are going to print endless currency till 2025. When you do endless entries of currencies, what does that mean? You are killing the currency.
Yes.
So this fancy terminologies which are being thrown around, like open border policy. Now, what is an open border policy? Either there is a border or there is no border. What is an open border policy? So I think those powers to be who decided to bring illegals in the West, across the West, those are the powers who are running this de-dollarization show. And since they have decided, nothing can stop this from happening. In fact, if you just to give you an example, before the Prime Minister came for a visit to the US, you had appointment of a new chief economic advisor, Jared Bernstein. Now, he is the author of Dethrone King Dollar. Your new chief economic advisor is the author of Dethrone King Dollar. Okay. And you need to also study who is de-dollarizing, say, for example, the country of Iraq. If you study some of these things, you realize where the decision is being made.
Well, very true. And thanks for that wonderful economics class and banking intertwined with global finance. This was a fantastic talk. And viewers, let's now take some questions from them. Pradeep Tumati wants to know, Japanese YCC lasted for 40 plus years. At this rate, US YCC and subsequent dollar reset can last another 200 years. Your thoughts?
Pradeep ji, this is not possible, particularly because there is no reflective investment in the US Treasury coming up. In fact, I'll give you the last week's data. The last week's data said that US had a very hard time selling the 30-year debt. It was trying to borrow 24 billion, and it had to resort to pass on 25% of 24 billion to the primary dealers, which means there were no takers for the new US debt, 30-year debt that they were trying to issue. So it's just all over. I do not see that this kind of formula can anymore move forward.
Next one, please. Thank you, AK. With dollar valuation going down, will this impact the hardest on IT cities of Bangalore and Hyderabad in India?
So, AKG, you got to know what is happening right now. Each of the big Western businesses, they are taking the Prime Minister's time to meet. They are being told that you will bring the India business head along in the meeting. After the meeting, they announce India operations. They go to the West, shut down the offices and announce layoffs. This is exactly what I predicted, that by 2030, most of the Western big companies will have a resident Bharatiya as a global head of operations operating from Bharat. So you be prepared for a world where a lot of big companies would be shifting their bases to Bharat. Not just that, we are looking at Made in Bharat as a brand where it's going to be the most expensive brand in the world after 2030, which is the 1,000 years of reversal. When we were selling to only the elite in the outside world, be it the Silk Route or the spices trade route or whatever that you call it. So not just that the latest iPhone or the Apple phone would be with Bharatiyas, only the elite outside Bharat will be able to buy those phones. This is what we are looking at. In fact, if you read the official statement of the 2+2, Lloyd Austin and Secretary Blinken, who had visited Bharat recently, that statement clearly says the aim is to build India as the global defense hub. That is the aim. It is clearly mentioned in that joint statement. So the entire defense of the Indian subcontinent from Saudi Arabia to Laos, Cambodia will be jointly shouldered, because after the financial reset, US will not be in a position to do the global policing like it used to do. So you got to know that this entire budget will be shouldered jointly with the countries in the region, with India as the defense hub exporting those products. So these are the kind of changes coming in. So your question about Bangalore and Hyderabad, the services sector and particularly IT sector is going to take a hit worldwide, but the Bharatiya cities will not have that much impact. Why? Because a massive funding and shift of operations is going to happen to Bharat. One. Second, the IT sector is going to diversify its clientele to Middle East, Russia, and Southeast Asia gradually. And third, the IT sector is also going to diversify the sectors. It will now serve more of farming, food processing, logistics, manufacturing, defense, and space. So it is going to be defense tech, it is going to be space tech, it is going to be agri-tech, and it is going to be manufacturing tech. That is a shift which is going to happen as we come back to the core sectors. You got to understand that humanity discovered the concept of marriage and the concept of agriculture together. That was the starting point of women empowerment, because humanity shifted from monogamy to polygamy, from polygamy to monogamy, because you have to work on a piece of land and then you can do textiles, spices, silk, all that kind of handicrafts and that kind of trade that used to happen 1,000 years back. So this attraction of job model as empowerment only began with pound as a single country reserve currency. That concept of giving priority to job model as empowerment, that started with the single country reserve currency, and that 400 years of cycle is coming to an end. And not surprisingly, as you move towards outside from the core sectors, what you get is divorce. Because as you move out from the agricultural settlements, because that word settle comes from agriculture settlements, that marriage word settle. Okay. As you move out from the core sectors and went to the services sector, every third year your neighbor is changing, your banker is changing, your employer is changing, your insurance guy is changing, and no relatives are attending your home. That is exactly the reason why people misbehave with each other and get those 60% divorce rates. So this single country reserve currency and the services sector, these are the reasons why the social chaos and the family institution dilution which it has caused in the last 400 years. Now it is reversing back after the end of this single country reserve currency status, which means the core sectors are going to jump back to real valuations, which is manufacturing, farming, food processing, logistics, defense and space tech, and precious metals.
Thank you so much. Next question, please. Chaitanya Takle wants to know, does indiscriminate dollar printing not endanger US with hyperinflation?
That's exactly what is going to happen. So there are two things when the multi-currency basket becomes so huge that the demand for the trading currency for the dollar goes down. That will be the first trim. Now you no more require it for trading. You are not going to save in that currency. So the demand for the reserve currency goes down. And the final portion, which is important for valuation, is the productivity of your population, about what you can sell to the rest of the world at a price point which the rest of the world will like to buy. Which is exactly why I say that when Americans will hunt for made in USA products and start building it home, that is the point in time when it will have to trim the economy massively and bring the salaries down to its real value, as 180 nations pull out from the valuations from the Western assets. So this is the massive trim which is coming for the US economy.
Next question, please. Akash Mihir wants to know, I have read entire South Korean economy runs on credit card loans. What will happen to South Korea if the world economy goes down?
Akashji, it is not just about South Korean economy. Fiat dollar, I say fiat dollar cities. So fiat dollar cities worldwide will take a big hit. Be it Toronto, be it London, be it Canberra, Sydney, be it Paris, be it Berlin, be it Mumbai, be it Pune, be it Hyderabad, be it Bangalore. So all those fiat dollar cities built on Western template of services sector is going to take some or the other kind of a hit in terms of remittances, outsourcing projects and exports. So we are moving to a world where there will be more and more kind of a protectionism that will come up in this time of crisis, next 3-4 years, wherein all countries are going to behave the way they like, which means you are secure only if you have bilateral trade agreements, not multilateral. So all those countries who have signed free trade agreements will have some kind of cushion from the crisis that is coming up. The rest of the world who are dependent on a multilateral trade pact are going to face haphazard behavior of protectionism from countries worldwide. And this is a hard lesson which all countries, I guess, learned during COVID, that you cannot depend on critical things for the outside world.
Next question, please. Thank you, Ramay Raj Singh, for becoming a YouTube member. Ramay Raj Singh wants to know, is it advisable to look for a career in financial sector given you have made predictions of its downfall?
Well, Ramay Raj Singh, in terms of if we were talking about Bharat, then Bharat will not have that kind of a big hit like the Western world is going to have. So if you are in the West, The first will be banking, second will be IT sector, third will be the consulting sector, and fourth will be the education sector. Again, I'll take you to the same concept. The single country reserve currency status with pound began with this British classroom format of stuffing human beings within four walls for 15 long years so that they don't understand the market. And that is how human trafficking used to happen from classroom to jobs, right? Now that single country reserve currency status is going, you got to understand that you have to come back to the core sectors, which means as soon as the layoffs begin in IT, banking, consulting, the question mark will be posed to the education sector, that why exactly are you putting human beings in four walls for 15 long years if you do not have the job numbers to justify that?
Next question, please. Sachin Sharma wants to know, so on what backing Pak has that Pakistan is talking about demonetizing their currency?
Sachin ji, Pakistan is a total, it's a basket case. And I think it's high time. I think they cannot deliver terrorists, which is exactly why they are completing the to-do list before the final showdown. They cannot hand over you the terrorists. So their unidentified assailants are having a free run within the country before the final showdown of POK begins. So you got to understand that that basket country has realized that the Western economies are under financial stress now. So no more funding is going to come. The Middle East, Saudi Arabia and UAE has taken the de-radicalization, de-dollarization path. So no funding can come without conditions from there either. And the Chinese are themselves facing de-dollarization, unemployment, massive unemployment in the Chinese economy because of de-dollarization. And China themselves are coming back to mandir economy, reviving all the mandirs. And it is again coming back to the birth rates consumption model, which I think Xi Jinping for the last 2 terms was clashing with Li Keqiang on. Li Keqiang kept on talking export model, and Xi Jinping kept on saying internal cycle. And finally, both the guys from the Politburo were thrown out who were pro-exports. One was Li Keqiang, who recently died, and Wang. Both of them were removed in the last Politburo. So Xi Jinping basically realized, first it was 2018 when Bharat offered them yuan rupee trade. China was the first one to be offered. They did not understand back then. But after COVID, Xi Jinping realized that it has made only 3 trillions in reserves after doing the labor for the whole world for 40 years. And Americans distributed 14 trillions during COVID just in benefits. So that realization is what brought an end to the export model direction, which is why if you take out the chart of last 12 months exports of China, they have cut down the EU and Western exports by 25% and diverted those goods to Middle East and Southeast Asia. So it is very clear after the financial reset, only those countries are going to get trade who has something real to give in exchange. So it is high time the West starts sniffing the coffee.
Here's just one point of interest here. In Daily Global Insights, we have been saying that the world order is changed, that it's going to be bilateral relations. We said this 3-4 years ago. Sridhar Chityalaji had mentioned this, that it's the world is going to be bilateral, and this is what's going to happen. Now you understand why UK is keen on a free trade agreement. EU as an entity wants to have a free trade agreement, and Canada sometimes yes, sometimes no, also a free trade agreement with India. Next one, please.
So this visit of 2+2 is the beginning of what we call as the shift of power, where the UK position will be taken by US, the US position will be taken by Bharat in terms of partnership. So US will become ally of Bharat for the next 100 years. This is what JP Morgan chief offered when he visited to Bharat. He said that US will become your ally for the next 100 years, not the other way around. So mark the words, what is being talked about here. So you're not surprised that the External Affairs Minister is visiting UK, and the entire cabinet reshuffle that you are seeing, James Cleverly is now going to take Home Secretary position. The Home Secretary has been a problem pointer in the free trade agreement negotiations in terms of inflow and outflow of Bharatiya citizens in UK. Now we are sure that James Cleverly has taken up that role. The free trade agreement will be smooth. Not just that, you also saw David Cameron coming back as Foreign Secretary this time, the ex-Prime Minister. And you already know that he had said in Wembley, "Achhe din aayenge." So we are very positive that at the right time, you are soon going to get Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya coming back to Bharat.
Ravi Malhotra ji, thank you so much. Excellent analysis and foresight. Thank you so much. Next one, Karthik Vishwanathan wants to know, Ankit ji, would this lead to also winding off of massive state support that US offers to its citizens?
Karthik ji, you are perfect what you are saying. The elders or the elderly or the veterans, the aged population are going to be the first hit. The 401k, everybody knows what happened to 401k in the 2008 crisis. People know it, what happened to those numbers. Okay. And as far as the benefits is concerned, all those who are getting that retirement benefits and those kind of benefits, they know that they get the benefit, and after a few months they get a notice of depositing back some part of it. Right. So these notices are going to increase more and more, saying that, oh, we miscalculated, you need to give back some amount. So this is going to increase more and more. I also see that the central banks in the West will stop giving interest amount on the reserves which other banks hold with them. That interest rate will also go. Not just that, you will find every quarter 2 and 3 banks winding up and consolidating. In the weekends, they will not even tell the clients or the customers that your bank name has now changed. They will come to know on Monday that the bank name has changed. So these are the kind of big crisis that we are seeing to come.
Deepak Bhatt wants to know, what measures can I take as an individual to ride the reset smoothly? I work in the service sector in the West.
Well, Deepak ji, start finding a Western company which has some plans of operations shifting to Bharat. So start finding and take transfers in those very departments, because as I had predicted, before NRIs even come to know what is going on, some of the Westerners have already starting and hunting where to reside, which property to buy, and what job role they will have here. They have already started flocking in to search those things because they realize what is coming. In fact, after the prediction, the first moment that has happened is KPMG, US and UK, both are undergoing a project Himalaya, wherein the Western citizens are going to take the job roles in Bharat under KPMG Bharat. So before the NRIs even understand what is going on, these people have started searching jobs here.
Next one, please. Thank you, Vinod. Why? Can gurus move to US, UK to teach Dharma?
Well, this is, Vinodiji, this is certainly possible. And I'll tell you when it happens. It is a natural human tendency that whichever country has the largest economic might, the rest of the world thinks that the people of that country is doing something very good in terms of their routine life. That is how culturalization happens. So only when you have the economic might, people get attracted to know what is your routine life. So this is exactly what is going to happen in the West. the yoga, Ayurveda, and the mandir ecosystem is going to revive across the geography. You shouldn't be surprised if you find the Prime Minister in a few years doing Pran Pratishtha in Saudi Arabia. Don't be surprised. Entire Southeast Asia will start building mandirs on their own. And let me tell you, they will build even more magnificent mandirs than us on their own. Because mandir ecosystem is the only method which survives the town or the civilization for eternity. Nothing happens to Tirupati. Nothing happens to Kashi. Nothing will happen to Ayodhya. Right? So these mandir towns are till eternity because they support the economic life cycles. Entire tithis and festivals are linked to those mandir activities, which creates the social congregation, which is an essential element of economic cycles. Right? So something can happen to California. Something can happen to New York. In fact, New York can have Dharavi in the Central Park very soon. And something can happen to Chicago, but nothing will happen to the mandir towns. So gurus will certainly not just move to US, UK. The West will again come seeking Bharat after 400 years.
Thank you, KPD080. Keeping in mind your Sanatan economy, the LGBTQ section without marriage and family backup is said to face a lot of problems. Your views, please.
So, KPDG, you got to understand that the terminology of marriage is about giving approval to eligibility. Mark my words. The concept of marriage means it is the approval of eligibility of two adults to procreate as a part of householders' responsibility to carry forward the human civilization. The society gives the approval to the eligibility of two adults to carry forward the householders' responsibility for continuing the civilization. So when you talk about LGBTQ, there is no scope of approval to eligibility because eligibility does not exist to procreate from the very beginning. Okay, they are not eligible to procreate for whatever reasons. Okay, so they cannot be given the legal status of marriage. Now, there are couples who do not have kids or they have medical issues or whatever, but they will still have marriage status. Why? Because the society has given them approval to be eligible as adults to procreate. Okay, so the marriage terminology cannot be linked to LGBTQ. You can give them a separate status of co-living if you will, but you cannot use the terminology marriage for them.
Next one, please. Rishabh Gautam, thank you so much. Will buying more and more precious metals and saving agri land will make me several times richer?
Well, agricultural land 100% will make you rich. The kind of food security issues coming in. When money is being withdrawn from Microsoft and farmlands is being bought, you should understand what is going on. Okay, so the agriculture sector certainly is going to come up to the real valuations. And of course, the precious metals as well. Because last 40 years, as I said, it was artificially suppressed. So this entire thing of why the concept of currency is coming down, if I have to put it in a few words, the population which wants to stay rich by just passively investing in somebody else's business became so large in the world that the people who are actually producing things no more want to give their real products for that printed money. The population which wants to stay rich by just passively investing in somebody else's business became so large that the people who are doing real production are suppressed so much that they are no more interested in giving real products for that. That is exactly which is why the 400 years cycle of single country reserve currency status is going down. The stock market capitalization is a proof that the education sector has already collapsed, that the parents do not consider their children worthy of investment. That is what stock market capitalization means. Okay. it is not a wealth creation activity, it is a wealth transfer activity, stock market. So you got to understand this fact that we are blessed that a massive part of our population does not participate in stock market capitalization.
Thank you, Sree Sudan, for becoming a YouTube member. And thank you, Karthik Raju, for your donation. Dr. Ankit Shah, this has been a fantastic session. I learned a lot of things, and I have also followed almost all of your hangouts with different places. So that's why I could ask you some questions which are kind of complementing what you had already spoken in other channels. Viewers, he appears frequently on Jaipur Dialogues. I think he also appears on Dev Talks and probably, yeah.
Satology.
Yeah, and that one too. And so, we can't get enough of Dr. Ankit Shah, mainly because he's being proven right. He's coming in 3-4 months ahead of time, and he's giving us his estimate. I think there is some truth in what he's saying. I might not agree 100%, but I don't know what I would do to disagree. But I don't have a fact to tell him, no, you are wrong. I don't have something to say that. So that is really the challenge here. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.
Jai Hind.